Okay, these are some identities. We want to verify these identities. This is from section 5.1. And the first one is we want to show that the sine of x, secant of x equals the tangent of x. Now make sure you have your notes with you so you can be looking over all those identities. You want to make sure that you are on top of those. And what we can do first of all is we want to get the left side to look like the right side. So remember, the first technique was to get everything to look like the cosine or sine. Put everything in terms of the sine or cosine. Pardon me, put everything in terms of the sine or cosine. So this is already in terms of the sine, so I'll write sine of x. And the secant is the same thing as what? The secant is 1 over the cosine of x. Now we don't know this, so we'll put a little question mark there too. It's pretty obvious. And then what we can do is we can rewrite this. We just multiply numerator times numerator, denominator times denominator. We get the sine of x over the cosine of x. And that definitely equals the tangent of x. That's on our notes. When you get something that looks like your notes, one of your identities there, you're pretty much done. Okay, so you want to get this to look like one of the basic identities. And nope, that's pretty easy. Okay, let's take a look at number 3 on your homework. And this is the tangent of negative x, okay, times the cosine of x equals negative the sine of x. Now this is where we can use those odd-even functions. Now remember, since the tangent is going to be negative in the fourth quadrant, the tangent of negative x is the same thing as negative the tangent of x. All right? Remember, it's the tangent and the sine that reverse signs, SIGNs, when they go into the negative because they're negative in the fourth quadrant. It's a cosine that doesn't reverse signs. The cosine of negative x equals the cosine of x because in the fourth quadrant the cosine is positive, and then if we take negative x, that's going to put it down the fourth quadrant. So these are on your notes, and we talked about how to remember it, like using those quadrants from the unit circle, so it makes it easy to remember. And that's going to be the cosine of x equals. So that's what we're trying to prove. So now we got this negative taken out of this. Now we can rewrite everything in terms of the sine and cosine. So I got negative the sine of x over cosine of x. Oops, there we go. So it's the tangent of x times the cosine of x. And this is all the same thing, negative sine of x. Not quite sure, but what could we do here? We can cancel these cosines out, and now we have negative sine of x. And that definitely is equal to negative sine of x. All right? So that's all you have to do. Okay, let's take a look at number 5. So these work out really nice. They're like puzzles, and they're kind of designed to work out, so they're not that bad. Okay? Tangent, secant, sometimes they look pretty, they look like they're going to be really odd. But as soon as you start applying those principles, so we got tangent of x, cosecant of x, and cosine of x. Is that equal to 1? Wow. So it's still, as soon as you start applying those methods and principles and rules and the basic identities you have, then they start to clean up pretty fast. So they're kind of like little puzzles. So first of all, we'll try to get everything in terms of the sine and the cosine. So this is the sine of x over the cosine of x. We know that. This is 1 over the what? Sine of x. And this is the cosine of x. Does that equal 1? Well, look, this cancels there, that cancels there. You know, you can see. Do it in a different color, but these signs cancel. And these cosines cancel. So what do you have? 1. Kind of mess that up, so I'll just say 1 equals 1. Check. Okay, that's pretty nice. That's no problem. Okay, and number 7. Take a look at number 7. See if I can fit it in here. I had to crowd these things, but I'd like to save some paper if I can. So number 7 was a secant of x, and then minus a secant and the sine squared of x. And does that equal the cosine of x? Okay, so we can rewrite this. I probably should have used more paper for this one because it might take more. As a matter of fact, I'm going to put this on it. Well, we'll just continue. Okay, so what can I do out of these two terms? Remember, we talked about this today. We've got one term here. We've got two terms here, so we'd like to get one term. And one way to do that is factor. I can factor out a secant. So let me factor out a secant. So I've got the secant of x. And what's left in the first term? 1. And what's left in the next term? Minus sine squared of x. And then, does that equal that? Don't know yet. Okay. Alrighty. So I'll have to continue that over here. Sorry about this. I think I'm going to do it like this. Should work out okay. There we go. Okay, so this is number 7. Continue. All right, and then remember when we have 1, remember what we talked about today, we can rewrite this, the secant of x, and remember 1 is the same thing as what? The sine squared of x plus the cosine squared of x. That's a nice identity. That nice Pythagorean identity that comes in so handy. So this is 1, and this is 1. So I just substitute. Okay? Minus the sine squared of x, and that's all in the parentheses. Does that equal the cosine of x? Well, I'm still not too sure, but getting a little closer. Now, since this is substituted in, I've got the secant of x. And then what can I do here? I can cancel what? The sine squared and the sine squared. So those go away. So now I've got the secant x times the cosine squared of x. I don't really need the parentheses. Does that equal the cosine of x? Well, I'm not too sure, but now let's go back to our basic technique and get everything in terms of the sine and cosine. So what's the secant the same as? The secant is the same thing as 1 over the cosine of x. And the cosine squared is just the cosine of x times the cosine of x, right? Does that equal the cosine of x? Well, all I can do is cancel that with that, and I'm done. So I could just say cosine of x equals cosine of x, and put a check there. So see how neat that worked out? Those work out. They're kind of fun that they actually work out. Okay? So there we go. Now, probably what we'll do for some test problems and some quiz problems, what we would do is we would take a problem like this, and we would actually simplify it so it would be one term. So you would just kind of simplify these things and try to get one basic term like cosine. We might give you like multiple choice, like it might be the sine of x, the cosine of x, the tangent of x, and then you can work through here. But you'd follow the same procedure to kind of clean it up and just get everything in terms of the cosine of x. And we'd give you like a choice there to work with. Okay? So that's number 7. Okay? I think that's a good start. Hope those help.